I'm Mark.
I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 156. We work at Alter Ego Comics, a comic book store in Lima, Ohio. And every week we visit with you and talk to you about what we think is good in the world of comics. And even great. We lean more towards the great than we do the good. So, let's talk about great stuff this week. My pick of the week was Ultimate Comics. Oh my god, this title. Ultimate Comics All New Spider-Man number 200. Which is apparently the culmination of, not the culmination of, but there have been 200 comics featuring the words Ultimate and Spider-Man in the title, with other words shoved in between or in front of or behind. And this really should come as no surprise to anybody that's watched this show for any amount of time. Or Ultimate Comics Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man, in my opinion, are two of the best comics to come out of Marvel Comics in the last 15 years, at least. Consistently solid, written by Brian Michael Bendis, artwork by a rotating cast of characters, but primarily in the olden days, Mark Bagley. As we moved forward, we got David LaFuente, we got David Marquez and Sarah Pichelli, and they're all featured in this comic, which celebrates 200 issues, featuring the Ultimate Universe version of Spider-Man. Spoiler warning.
He did.
He beat me to it. So, the Peter Parker, many of you probably know this already, but Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe died tragically at the hands of the Green Goblin, and it was after just lots of fighting and stuff, he was utterly destroyed.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Tired, and yeah. And then we were introduced to Miles Morales, who is the new Ultimate Spider-Man, and apparently he actually obtained his powers while Peter was still alive and was there to kind of witness the last moments of Peter Parker's life, and decided that he needed to step up and be Ultimate Spider-Man. Or just, they actually don't call him Ultimate Spider-Man,
right.
Ultimate Universe, they just call him Spider-Man.
It's like Brazil nuts are just called nuts in Brazil.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, this issue, anyway, is celebrating Peter Parker's life. It's 2 years after his death, and Aunt May sends out an invitation, an evite, to all of Peter's friends and acquaintances, and it's primarily the youngins that he hung around with. It's Mary Jane and Gwen and Kitty Pryde, Johnny Storm, Bobby Drake, and Miles is there, and his little friend. Is it Genki? Genki? What is this kid's name, Bendis? Come on, tell me how to pronounce this. Anybody? You want to help?
I've always assumed it was Genki, but I don't actually know that.
That is a Genki name.
I'm sorry. Don't oppress this culture.
Genki, yes. Iron Man sadly could not make it, but he sends lots of food. And J. Jonah Jameson thought he was going to go into the house, but just couldn't bring himself to do it. So it's lots of stories about where do you think Peter would be now if he were still alive? What effect did Peter have on you? Talking to all these people. It's just a really good Bendis. This is the character, more than anyone else, that I hope that Brian Michael Bendis is remembered for when everything is said and done. I think his contribution to comics really, it's far and wide. From his creator-owned stuff to working on all new X-Men and working on the Avengers for many, many years. But I think Ultimate Spider-Man, whether it's Peter Parker, but especially Miles Morales, I think will be his legacy, and it's a mighty fine legacy to have. Good news for those of you that have not maybe read any of this. It's all available in collected editions, so you can check those out. But there is a new Ultimate Spider-Man comic that will be out in the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. I don't remember exactly when it's coming out, but it's Miles Morales, Ultimate Spider-Man #1. I urge you to pick it up when it comes out. Show Marvel that you're supporting good writing, good new characters, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. Just really good stuff.
Really good. That was actually, we always try to talk about different things, but that was my pick of the week in the store as well.
So both of us, and I haven't talked to Alex yet, but I would be willing to bet that it's probably his pick of the week as well.
Yeah, ridiculously emotional and poignant and awesome. Next up, we've got Detective Comics 30 by Francis Manipool and Brian Buccellato. And this is the start of a new creative team. It's a new storyline called Icarus. And we pick up, we see, there's actually a lot of characters that aren't Batman in it. Batman and Bruce Wayne are sort of around the fringes of the story as we tell it. We're introduced to this new drug trade and a new villain. I don't know if he's a new villain, called the Squid. He was a villain I wasn't familiar with. Kind of organized crime type who has a giant squid he feeds people to, which is, the way to do it. And this mother and daughter who kind of come up through Gotham. The daughter is a daredevil, and the mother is trying to get the city to get its crap together, to kind of reform the same way Bruce does, and kind of reinvigorate specifically the East Side. East Side? One of
West
the
Side? I don't know what side.
I believe it was the East Side,
it was the Narrows.
Right, so was it the Narrows?
I don't know, I just made that up.
And so you've got her working with Bruce, or trying to entreat Bruce to get involved, and then you've got Batman cracking down on the street crime and drugs, and they are in some ways interwoven, and it was really good. I haven't been following Detective religiously in the New 52. I kind of pick it up when it looks good, or when there's a crossover or something cool, but I'm excited about this new arc. It was easy to pick up. You don't have to have known anything that's gone on previously. You just have to know he's Batman. And yeah, it was lots of fun. I like it. You'll see previews of it in the back of about half the DC books this week. It's got the art has a cool feel. I don't have the words to say it, but impressionist, I guess. I don't know. It's
I wouldn't even get that fancy. I mean, it's kind of washed out watercolor. Okay. Kind of. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not an accurate description, but
maybe the shadow was really present. There's a lot of kind of half shadow and stuff, but yes, the shadow from Dynamite was in there. But lots of new fun, new arc. If you like Batman, maybe give it a look and see if you like this one too.
And this is from the creative team that launched The Flash in the New 52. And for me, Manipul's artwork has always been very subdued and very... It doesn't jump off the page at you.
Right.
It just has that kind of like a washed out look, but it's not a noir-y washed out look. It's just kind of... It's unique. Francis Manipul is one of those artists that, when you see his stuff, it's him. He's got a distinct style.
And it works well for Gotham because the city, especially the parts of the city we're talking about, are kind of washed out themselves. They've been through a lot. And
one of the other things I liked about this was that they're acknowledging things that have I can't talk, that have happened in other Bat books. So there are references to Damian being dead.
Well, she didn't. I don't think she knows he's dead.
No, but Bruce and Alfred were talking about.
Right,
yeah, it's not. Yeah, the general public thinks that Damian apparently is still alive.
Right.
But there's discussion between Bruce and Alfred, and we see that I guess we're seeing that primarily in Batman and Robin, or Batman and fill in the blank Hero of the Week or the month. But it was nice to see that there is that continuity. I mean, I'm a sucker for continuity, especially when you're talking about DC and Marvel. I kind of wanted to. And
this was just the right amount of continuity for me. It was subtle stuff. They reference Bruce making the speech in, was it Year Zero, where he talks about reforming cities. She says it 6 years ago. But it wasn't anything. There were no plot points you couldn't understand if you didn't know what they were.
Yeah, you could absolutely pick this book up if you've never read a Batman comic before. Absolutely. If you're just interested in jumping on board. And the cover is very striking. There's no way you will miss this on the stands this week. Very bright yellow with cool Batman stuff going on. All right, next up for me, Starlight, #2 by Mark Miller and Goran Parlov. This is the first of the Millerverse books, again, which will probably be a thing that's much wider in scope than what it is right now. Although people refer to the Millerverse when they talk about Kick-Ass and those other books, Superior and things like that. But anyway, for me, I mentioned this about the first issue as well. It's a much more subdued Mark Miller than we've seen in some of those other books. Not a lot of violence, not a lot of action, and then the phone would ring, and we forgot to turn it off. So ignore that. Oh, look, someone got it already. Excellent. Back to our regularly scheduled review of Starlight #2. The main character is very sympathetic. You can relate to him. An older guy, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers analog, John Carter analog, who in his youth as a fighter pilot or a test pilot for the Air Force ends up in another galaxy where he helps save a planet, and then he comes back to Earth and no one believes that he actually did all these things and they think he's crazy. His wife passes away after many years of marriage together, and he's just trying to kind of find his place in this world. His kids are grown and have moved out, and they don't come around anymore. It's kind of like that Cat Stevens song. Cats in the Cradle. That's what this book should have been called. Cats in the Cradle. Starlight. But I just it's emotional, and I think it depends on where you are in your life. If you have children, if you can kind of relate to where this guy is coming from. But also we get introduced to a new character in this one. Actually, we got introduced at the end of the first issue, which is a kid from this planet that the main character helps save, and he comes back and says, "We need your help again.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi."
Yes, you're our only hope. So I'm digging it. Another reason to dig it is at the back of the book. Check it out when you get it. Miller World, is it Millar or Miller? I'm going to go with Miller. Miller World loves retailers, and they have a list of retailers, and Alter Ego Comics is the only retailer in the state of Ohio to be listed. So thank you for that, Mr. Miller. Yeah, good stuff. I'm liking it a lot.
It was a lot of fun. I felt like it was almost the first issue was very heavy. His life is kind of sad. You're putting in the position. His wife's dead. His kids have kind of forgotten about him. His glory days are gone. Everyone thinks he's crazy and lying. And then this one was kind of almost a joyous relief from that. Very fun.
Well, he was having fun.
He gets to fly the spaceship, and
I think to some degree he was doubting himself. As he gets older, like, did I really do that stuff? And also trying to relive those days, relive the glory that he experienced there, and he gets to fly the ship again, and he gets to talk to a kid from another planet and find out what's going on. And the funniest part is, he's got his bags packed, and he's basically saying, "Yes, I'll go back with you." And he's going through a checklist in his head. He's like, "I just want to make sure I have all my medication, and I got my cholesterol pills, and all this other stuff." It's a really good book. Highly recommend Starlight.
New number 1 this week from Boom. We've got Dead Letters, written by Christopher Sabella with art by Chris Visions. And this is a book about stuff. This is one of those that's sort of a concept book, so it's difficult to tell you what it's about without revealing what it's about without spoiling it. But it starts off, we follow a character who has maybe had kind of a dark past and essentially should be, or thought he was, going to be dead. And he gets involved with a bunch of characters. There's different factions that seem to want his help or want his attention or want to kill him, depending on how it's going. And he strikes out in some interesting ways, and he deals with the negotiators, and he starts killing people, or he starts striking back against people, and the people aren't dying. So it creates this question of, where is he? How did he get here? What's the background? And while we don't get a full resolution to it by the end of the issue, we get kind of a shot into it, what it's going to be about. And I really liked it. I thought it was fun. It was fresh. It was something I hadn't read before, which is something.
Which is tough to do when comics have been published for 75 plus years.
Yeah, no, I would think this would be great for fans of stuff like 10 Grand.
Exactly.
And I kind of felt a little bit of a feel like why can't I think of his name? The guy doing Punisher and Black Widow, who did the activity over
Nathan Edmondson.
And it's not spy stuff, which is what Edmondson tends towards, but it had the feel of that kind of action-y, a competent, qualified person who's striking out in the world, and I really enjoyed it.
I think if I had to characterize it, I would call it supernatural noir.
Yeah, that's right.
That it's very much a noir comic, but very much supernatural as well. This has gotten a lot of positive praise from creators like Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction. So if you like those guys, if you like what Josh just talked about, you want to check out Dead Letters from Boom Studios. My last pick this week is Loki, Agent of Asgard #3. So this is 3 for 3 for me with Loki, with this new series written by Al Ewing with artwork by Lee Garbett. It's just so good. Very much the way that Josh used to rant and rave about Journey to Mystery when I wasn't reading it. Every week, he would just, every month, Journey to Mystery, I love it, it's so good. But the first 2 issues, we got story of present day, kind of 20-something, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. There's the guys who wear black fingernail polish, not goth, but,
sorry.
Help me, people. What word am I thinking of?
Poser?
No. I don't know.
Hipster?
No,
hipster
not hipster either. We can call him Hipster Loki. He's where the last issue he was at a speed dating thing with Lorelei. The first issue, I don't remember what happened.
He had to break into Avengers Tower
to steal a sword.
Thor was like possessed.
Right.
And he had to get Thor unpossessed.
So we saw at the end of issue 1 that, first off, this is very complicated. Hipster Loki has made a deal with the All-Mother to do good deeds, and in exchange for that, some of his previous bad deeds will be erased.
And not just erased from the record. I mean, these are mythological beings. They just never happened.
Right.
The myths are being unwritten functionally.
But we saw at the end of the first issue that older, grumpier, wrinklier Loki still exists and is also in negotiations with the All-Mother for something. We don't know what. So this issue focuses on grumpy Loki, grumpy old man Loki, and involves a flashback tale. I don't know if he's time traveling or if it's a flashback tale. I didn't pick that up, but he is hanging out with a young version of Odin's father, Bor, and putting things in motion that will help him down the road. So,
and the young version of Odin at one point.
Yeah, young version of Odin. Yes, because old man Bor
dies.
No, there wasn't a young version of Odin in here.
Okay.
It's young version of Bor. Okay. And then he's like a teenager or 20-something, and his father passes away, and they try to decide what to do with different things. So there's
two people with beards.
The magical sword is in here. There's also, what's his face? The
Sigurd? Sigurd?
Yes. Is that it? Yes, Sigurd, who's been around Forever, yeah. But we see him in the past, we see him in present day. I'm really making this longer and more drawn out. No one's going to want to read this book after listening to my review. But it's really good. It looks like it's setting things up that will come back, down the road with this series. Ewing is writing great stuff here, and Garbet's artwork is amazing. One of the best artists working in comics today, as far as I'm concerned. Some great, fairy tale type stuff about guys that turn into giant otters, and told us how, what was the dragon's name? Fafnir?
Fafnir?
Yeah, because I remember reading about Fafnir in Simonson's run, Walt Simonson's run in Thor, and so we kind of get the origin story of Fafnir in here. So anyway, if you're a Thor fan, or a Norse fan, or a Loki fan, or just a fan of good stuff, and maybe like fairy tale type stuff, Once Upon a Time type stuff, Loki, Agent of Asgard.
Once Upon a Time is a good analog because you have stuff happening in the past in flashback and stuff happening in the current.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good choice. All right, now we have, there are too many new books this week for us to talk about all of them, so we're going to do some quick hits. We've got Aquaman and the Others, #1, over at DC. This picks up a storyline with the super team that Aquaman was with in, I believe, the second arc of Aquaman. Mostly, it was pre-New 52, but it was flashbacky stuff, and they showed back up. Something is draining their power from Atlantean artifacts. They've got to get the band back together and figure out what's up. Written by Dan Jurgens with art by Lon Medina. Then
quickly.
Lon Medina.
If you want to see, yes, I just wanted him to say that again. If you're interested in DC's Future's End weekly series that's beginning in May, supposedly it starts with the 0 issue that's a freebie on Free Comic Book Day, Saturday, May 3rd. But technically it actually begins in Aquaman and the Others. So if you want to get the very first glimpse of Future's End,
I would say it's foreshadowed more than it begins. But
there is a glimpse.
Oh, there's a glimpse.
Carry on.
Quite a glimpse. On the other side of the aisle, we've got Inhuman #1, written by Charles Soule, who we love on She-Hulk, which is also new this week, and Letter 44. Art by legendary Joe Madureira. Madureira, is that right? Madureira? Joey Mad. Joey Mad, that's what we call him.
Joe Mad is what he goes by.
This picks up the fallout from the end of Infinity when Black Bolt unleashed the Terrigen bomb, functionally sending mists all over the planet, turning people who have even the tiniest bit of Inhuman DNA into hideous cocoons, which may or may not give them superpowers. And this picks up some new characters being affected by the cloud, and as well as following the traditional Inhumans like Medusa and your other ones. What?
The other ones.
Medusa. Well, I'm trying to remember, because the mental one died in Inhumanity. Karnak died.
Karnak the Magnificent.
When he threw himself out the window. I'm trying to remember. None of the other ones actually show up.
Medusa's the only one we see in here is Medusa, yeah.
And she has like some hangers on.
Not even Lockjaw.
No Lockjaw. Is he a dog, or is he a human that turned into a thing that looks like a dog?
You got me. Anybody got the answer to that?
It's creepy if they treat him like a dog.
Yeah.
So we get a new Inhuman, or a new character named Dante, whose power is to be covered in fire. Seriously, Charles Soule? But if you like the fallout from Infinity, if you like the Inhumans, it's a no-brainer. And last up on the Marvel side, we've got What If? Age of Ultron, #1, written by Joe Keating with art by someone Naneko. Raphael Enenko. And this is a what-if story. Everybody loves them. They come around every year or two, and they take a classic Marvel event and see what if one thing had changed.
But this time, they tackle Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
You said a classic Marvel event. And I said, but this time they tackle Age of Ultron.
Haters gonna hate. But, yeah. So if you want to see what had happened if some things in Age of Ultron went differently, this is your shot.
What if?
What?
Age of Ultron. Weekly series, I believe. Yes. 5 issues. Yes. It's a 5-week month.
And I'm not sure if it's all one big story or if it's 5 individual stories. Because this one, it didn't necessarily wrap up totally, but it totally could have been the end of the story. And they could have moved on to a different one. I don't know. If you're a Hank Pym fan, this would be a place you'd want to check out.
I do love the cover to that issue.
It's a good cover.
It is awesome. All right. So, top 5 list this week. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd. In 2 days, actually tomorrow, technically, Captain America the Winter Soldier hits theaters. So we thought we'd talk about our top 5 movie sequels. Do we want to say that we're better than the original? Top 5 movie sequels that were better than the original. You may begin.
I may begin. I don't know what order you want to do this in, so I'm going to go with the obvious one, The Empire Strikes Back. Most big fans would argue that it is by far the best of the original Star Wars trilogy, and it was.
I have nothing left to talk about. Thanks for watching.
The Empire Strikes Back is amazing. It had a level of character development, a improvement in pacing, an improvement in storytelling. Basically, all the things that George did on the first one that he hired out for someone else to do on Empire were better. Written by legendary screenwriter
Lawrence
Kasdan. Wow,
and someone else, Lee Brackett.
Lee Brackett, she died of cancer.
Yeah, she passed away before it was completed.
Sorry, Lee Brackett.
Directed by Irving Kershner, who did... He did The Day the Earth Stood Still? No, he did one of those classic sci-fi movies.
It might have been The Day the Earth Stood Still. Metropolis. No.
Or was the one with Leslie Nielsen. What was that one? And Robbie the Robot.
Forbidden Planet?
I think he did Forbidden Planet.
Oh, okay. Cool. But Empire Strikes Back, you've all seen it.
We're playing word association games here.
We'll just shout things out. Leslie Nielsen.
Yes, Empire is better than Star Wars. Star Wars is still really damn good, though.
Oh, yeah. No question there.
All right, we didn't talk about this one in our little pre-meeting before we decided to film, but I'm going to go with Aliens over the mighty Ridley Scott Alien, and primarily because they're almost two completely different movies.
They're different genres, even.
Have you even seen Aliens?
I've seen most of Aliens.
All right, so yes, I love the first Alien film as a sci-fi thriller or a sci-fi suspense film.
Survival horror.
Aliens fit in perfectly in the mid-1980s as a sci-fi action movie alongside Predator and some other movies that I can't think of right now. Basically, action movies of the 80s. You know, your Lethal Weapon, your Die Hard, there are lots
Megaforce?
There's lots of... Shut up. There's lots of shooting in Aliens and action and driving cars fast, or not cars, driving vehicles fast and flying ships, and the aliens were fast in this one. It wasn't the slow, kind of creepy, lumbering in the shadows big chap that we saw in the first Alien film. Aliens, for me, better than the original, but not by much.
Okay.
Speak,
dog. Speak,
lockjaw.
I had a whole list this morning.
Well, you said Superman 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can defend that one sufficiently, though. I don't know if it is better. The Donner cut's probably better than the original.
What?
Sorry. All right, well, let's go with another one we talked about. With a caveat, Godfather 2.
It's been a long time since I've seen the Godfather movies.
Godfather
so you might
2,
have to take this on your own.
Godfather 2 has more scope than the original Godfather. The original Godfather is a great movie, but Godfather 2, I think, is a better movie. It's a more cohesive experience, but it really relies upon the Godfather more heavily. Like Empire, you could watch Empire absent Star Wars, and you would appreciate the film almost equally. Once you figure out who the characters were. But The Godfather really relies on Godfather. Godfather 2 really relies on Godfather 1. But I will say Godfather 2.
Okay, do you remember what else we talked about?
No, I don't. We had a whole list, though.
We had 4. We had 4 of the 5 that were firmly ensconced. What?
Dark Knight.
Oh, yeah, Dark Knight. There we go. And you people like this off-the-cuff stuff, where we have no idea what we're talking about.
Even when we know what we're
not
talking
prepared,
about.
with lots of ums and ahs. Yes, Batman, The Dark Knight. In fact, it was just called The Dark Knight. Christopher Nolan's second film, before that piece of trash, Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight is infinitely superior to Batman Begins, but...
I don't know about infinite.
It is. It is infinitely superior to Batman Begins. But Batman Begins is still a very, very, very good movie.
Does Dark Knight have Liam Neeson's?
Or Bruce Willis?
No, Bruce Willis.
No.
Absence of Liam Neeson.
There's so much... I mean, I have not met anyone, comic fan or non-comic fan, who did not like The Dark Knight, who did not love The Dark Knight. Except maybe my wife. She thought the police were complete idiots in The Dark Knight, and I think that's a fair evaluation of the GCPD, because they are pretty stupid in The Dark Knight.
Well, if the police in Gotham weren't stupid and corrupt, they wouldn't need a Batman.
That's debatable. We'll debate that on another episode. But what else is there to say? Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, the action sequences, the IMAX sequences. Even though I didn't see it in IMAX, you can still tell when you're watching it on Blu-ray or DVD which sequences those were. The scenes shot in downtown Chicago, the scenes that took place in Tokyo or wherever they were, where he's using the rubber gun, the globby gun, and sliding down. The action sequences... Just that opening scene, that opening bank robbery scene is just amazing. Dark Knight, I dare you to dispute me on that.
Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine.
Yes.
Aaron Eckhart was good, too. That was good all around.
Yeah. Maggie Gyllenhaal replacing Katie Holmes.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that. I mean, she was better as the character, but I don't like changing midstream, as a rule. All right, well, so speaking of 80s action movies, that's not quite an 80s action movie, Terminator 2.
Oh, you did
Terminator 2 is... significantly better on almost every level than Terminator 1. And it should be, because the budget was much, much larger.
The first film was made for $10.50.
So we now have two James Cameron movies on here, because Cameron did Aliens, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. The villain in Terminator 2 is better. You know, Schwarzenegger, as the original Terminator in Terminator 1, is an unstoppable killing machine. He will not stop until you are dead. But he didn't display a lot of ingenuity. He didn't really take advantage of some of his abilities. I mean, they killed him in basically a hydraulic press. That's not... overly awesome. T-1000, which much scarier as Robert Patrick? No, Robert, what's his name? The guy that was T-1000, he was on X-Files later. Was a much better villain.
I believe it was Robert Patrick.
You know, the scene where he impersonates the mom and then kills the husband with the milk.
The milk, and is that, what's his name? Ralphie? What was the name of the dog? It ends in...
Woofy.
Woofy.
Woofy was the name of the dog that wasn't the name of the dog.
Correct.
Yeah. But no, Terminator 2 is just... superior on almost every level to Terminator 1. It is, in my mind, the quintessential Terminator film.
For most people, it is. I still have a soft spot in my heart for the first Terminator film because it was, in my opinion, I don't know. I think the story in the original Terminator was a better story. I think that the execution and the effects and the pacing of Terminator 2 was better. So Terminator is still an excellent science fiction movie. Terminator 2, again, was that... It's kind of like the Aliens debate, I think. The original Alien, the original Terminator stand very well on their own. But then, once technology kind of advanced a little bit, and we got into the fast-paced, stuff, they both became sci-fi action movies.
Yeah, I mean, they both are obviously about time travel. But Terminator 1 is much more of a time travel movie. The future is more present in the consequences of the character's actions. I don't know why I'm talking like I'm not going to spoil things. If you haven't seen Terminator, you're wrong.
Get ready for the reboot, whatever is happening somewhere down the road.
Is it actually a reboot? I don't think it's a reboot.
No, it's a continuation.
They're going to start shooting because Dyson's son's in it, and
I don't know. Hollywood, come up with some original ideas. What happened to people? I mean, James Cameron has immersed himself in the world of Avatar and planning on filming Avatar 2 and 3 back to back, and whatever decades-long preparation has to go into that. But geez, Spielberg and Cameron and anybody else. Some original ideas, please. I mean, I love seeing comic book movies. I love seeing comic books make it to the big screen, but you guys are milking every form of media for films right now. Books, movies, but sequels to movies, reboots of movies, reimagining of movies, TV shows, board games. I mean, come on.
Well,
what happened? Where are the original screenwriters?
It's not that there aren't original screenwriters. It's that these movies cost $300 million to make, another $150 million to market. And if you're going to sign a check for $450 million, you better believe that there's an audience for it. So it's easier to go, yes, I can get X number of people.
There's less risk now than because of the technology.
They're less willing to
involved.
take a risk because of the cost involved.
Yeah, I wonder. This is another question for you folks to debate in the comments below. Would we have seen some of the classic sci-fi films of the 80s and 90s today? Would we see them today? Because they were unknown quantities. Something like E.T. Would we have seen an E.T.? Would we see an E.T. being made today? And we may see some form of E.T. being made somewhere down the road. But I don't know. I mean, would someone have handed Spielberg, who really only had at that point Jaws, which was the highest grossing
Jaws
and
film of all
Close
time.
Encounters under his belt? They're like, sure, make a movie about that wrinkled old thing, bald thing.
Yeah, whatever it is.
With his glowy finger.
He touches the kid where?
We've obviously spoken too long.
But we had a question to answer.
Oh, we did have a question to answer. Someone, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on your screen name, had mentioned that they went into their local comic book store and wanted to, he's been away from comics, wanted to get back into things, and was totally befuddled by Marvel's numbering system. How some books were Marvel Now, some were .1, some were all new Marvel Now, some had other numbers on them. I don't know if I can explain everything, but Marvel essentially has realized that a book with a number 1 on it will sell better than a book with a number 27 on it, or a book with a number 452 on it. So, they are frequently stopping and restarting series. As frequently as, 12 to 18 months after a number 1 starts. Fantastic Four is a good example in FF. They only ran for 15, 18 issues, and a
lot of those were 2 times a month.
Yeah, this is the end until next month. Daredevil, another example, 36 issues. Same creative team, relaunched with a number 1, because they know that more people are going to buy a number 1 than a book without a number 1. And it's a fact. We've been surprised by how quickly we're selling out of all new Marvel Now number 1s. We sold more than double Daredevil?
Actually, I checked the numbers. It was triple.
Okay,
it was almost exactly triple.
We
what
sold
we were
triple
selling
our
up.
sales on Daredevil 36 with all new Marvel Now Daredevil number 1,
and that's not taking into account the second printing we just got in, which could push it further.
It just boggles my mind. Now it could be people listening to us on the show or in the store saying you really need to read Daredevil. It's a great book, but triple the numbers. And you wonder why Marvel is doing number 1s all over the place. It actually would not surprise me to see Marvel do away with traditional numbering completely within the next 3 to 5 years.
Just see a number for the storyline.
They would have
part
a number.
One of,
every time there's a new storyline, they put a big number 1 on the cover, and that will suck people in to buy the issue.
Yeah, I would imagine they maintain numbering in indices, like in year,
yes,
for publishing purposes and copyright and whatnot.
But on the cover, and we see that now with series that were part of Marvel Now.
And all new Marvel Now.
No. Just with the books that launched as part of Marvel Now, like Uncanny Avengers,
right,
and Avengers and New Avengers. You're seeing number 1s on those books in the upper right hand corner, but they're keeping the numbering from their relaunch as part of Marvel Now, but they're throwing a big number 1 in the upper right corner because they're trying to trick you that it is a number 1. It is the first part of a storyline. And bottom line, and I've had this discussion with many people in the store, and Josh and I have talked about it. Who cares what Marvel does with their numbers at this point? Because the stories are really darn good. To me, at the end of the day, as long as they're telling good stories, then what does it matter? And I know that that's going to offend people with OCD and people that are trying to figure out how they're going to catalog their comic collection. But at the end of the day, if the publisher, if the writers and artists, creative team, or if they're telling a good story, then I'm down with it.
Yeah, and to speak more specifically to the question about where to start and how not to be overwhelmed by everything, the simplest form is just to pick up something that looks interesting and read it. Almost every book can be picked up, and you can and use that as to find your center, and then go out, I like this series, I want to go back and find out where this arc started. A great thing now, I don't know how long you've been out or how long you've been over on the DC side, but almost everything, literally Marvel everything, is collected in collected editions. So it doesn't really matter if you miss the number 1 when you can go to any decent comic shop or to other certain retailers on the interwebs and buy any collected edition. I can buy the first 16 issues of All New X-Men in trade right now almost anywhere. So I don't have to track down, I don't have to jump in at number 1s. Just pick up a book, find out what you like. And once you've figured out which stories or which characters, which creative teams are appealing to you, you can sand it out from there.
I'm willing to bet that most of us didn't start reading comics with a number one issue.
No.
You know, when I was a kid, many, many, many years ago, you know, you could pick up any issue of Uncanny X-Men or Avengers or whatever, and there was a recap, kind of. So there wasn't a recap page like we have now in some of the Marvel stuff, but the writing was done so that they brought you up to speed on who some of the characters were, what their powers were, what had happened before, and why they are where they are. So, you know, yes, number ones are convenient as far as jumping into something, but as Josh said, if a comic is done right, you should be able to pick up any issue and figure it out, and then decide if you want to move forward or go back and check out the previous stuff.
And I think my first was part 2 of an X-Men Spider-Man crossover. So anything will work. And
it worked. He's still reading comics, folks. That's it for this week. Thanks for your patience and for watching us talk for God knows how long. But we do appreciate the suggestions for the top 5 lists. We're kind of compiling them, and we're trying to do top 5 lists that are timely and that kind of fit in with whatever's happening in the world of comics or in the world in general that week. So that's why we did the sequel thing this week.
Because of Winter Soldier.
Because of Winter Soldier. And thanks for the questions. We'll either answer them on the in the comment section of the YouTube page, or we'll answer them here on live video. Go see Winter Soldier. And then maybe we'll do a...
Maybe you've already seen it.
Yes, I know that there are some bigger cities have already...
Just whisper to the monitor if it was good so I can know.
Blink twice for yes. We're out of here. Thanks for watching.